The testing chamber hummed with the kind of silence that made your sensory stalks itch. I stood there, all four of my arms crossed in what I hoped looked like professional confidence, watching the human through the observation panel. My name is Velric, Senior Evaluation Coordinator for the Galactic Cognitive Assessment Bureau, and I had seen exactly 372 species take the Khorvax Logic Puzzle. Not one of them had ever smiled at it before. The human, a female specimen named Rachel Kim, sat in the containment area with her legs folded under her in a way that looked anatomically improbable. She was staring at the holographic display floating in front of her, head tilted like one of those earthbirds I had seen in the documentation files. The puzzle rotated slowly in the air, its geometric patterns shifting through 12 dimensions, each layer connected to the next through quantum-entangled nodes that would make a Thessarian mathematician weep. She has been sitting there for 7 minutes, Khorvax muttered beside me, his translation collar crackling with static. My colleague was a Brinthos, which meant he had approximately 0 patience and 6 eyes that never blinked in sync. Most species need at least 40 minutes just to comprehend the spatial relationships. Maybe she is stuck, I offered, trying to sound hopeful. Hopeful was not the right word. Worried? Terrified? The human had already broken 3 testing protocols just by asking if she could have coffee during the examination. Coffee. As if cognitive evaluation was some kind of social gathering, Rachel suddenly laughed. Not a polite acknowledgement laugh, but a full, genuine burst of amusement that made my translator hiccup trying to process the emotional context. Oh, that is clever, she said to nobody in particular. Really clever. I almost missed it. My primary heart did a little flip. She found the solution. Impossible, Khorvax said flatly. The Khorvax puzzle has stumped military strategists, quantum physicists, and hive mind collectives. It took the Mercalian Empire 6 months to solve it with their best 30,000 thinkers working in parallel. The human reached out and touched the hologram, her fingers moving through the light patterns with surprising precision. She rotated one section, then another, then paused and actually giggled. Oh no, I whispered. What? Khorvax leaned closer to the panel, all 6 eyes suddenly focused. She is enjoying this. Rachel's hands moved faster now, manipulating the puzzle pieces through dimensions that most species needed cybernetic implants just to perceive. She hummed something under her breath, a simple melody that my translator categorized as human recreational music, subcategory, annoyingly catchy. Solution pathway alpha detected, the monitoring system announced in its bland, administrative voice. Time elapsed, 11 minutes, 14 seconds. See? Khorvax straightened up, his carapace clicking with satisfaction. She found it. Faster than most, I will admit, but she still found the standard solution. Perhaps humans are simply better at 3-dimensional spatial manipulation than we thought. Rachel stopped humming. She was staring at the puzzle again, but this time her expression had changed. Her eyes had gone wide, and her mouth had dropped open in what the cultural database called surprise mixed with realization mixed with oh no, I left the stove on. Huh, she said, that was not a good sound. I had been doing this job for 43 cycles, and I knew that huh in any language usually preceded either a breakthrough or a catastrophe. Sometimes both. There is another one, Rachel said, talking to herself again. Wait, no. 2 more. No, hold on. Her fingers flew across the hologram, undoing her previous solution and rebuilding it in a completely different configuration. The monitoring system beeped in confusion. Solution pathway beta detected, it announced, sounding slightly offended if a machine could sound offended. Time elapsed, 14 minutes, 6 seconds. Warning, non-standard approach detected. Non-standard? Khorvax leaned so close to the panel that he fogged it up with his breathing vents. What does that mean, non-standard? I did not answer because I was too busy watching Rachel work. She had that look now, the one I had seen in the footage of human mathematicians and engineers and that one terrifying video of a human child solving a puzzle box meant for postgraduate xenological studies. It was the look of someone who had just realized the game had more levels than advertised. Oh, this is beautiful, Rachel breathed. She swept her hand through the hologram and the entire structure rotated, revealing an underlying pattern that I had never noticed before. The symmetry works in reverse if you flip the quantum states. And if you do that, then the whole thing becomes modular. Which means, no, I said out loud. What? Khorvax asked. She is not supposed to do that. Do what? Think sideways. Rachel pulled apart the puzzle and reassembled it in a configuration that made my brain hurt just looking at it. The monitoring system went silent for exactly 3 seconds, which in computer time was the equivalent of screaming. Solution pathway gamma detected, it finally said, its tone distinctly suspicious now. Time elapsed, 18 minutes, 41 seconds. Warning, impossible configuration detected. Running diagnostic. Impossible? Khorvax's voice had gone up about 3 octaves. The system just said impossible. It gets worse, I said, because Rachel had started laughing again. Not the amused laugh from before, but the kind of laugh that humans made when they had just realized something both wonderful and terrible at the same time. "Oh, you beautiful, devious, clever puzzle," she said, grinning at the hologram like it was a dear friend. "You have got multiple stable states, don't you? The nodes can lock in different configurations depending on the approach vector. Which means the solution is not singular, it is." She trailed off and started counting on her fingers. Humans did that when they were processing large numbers quickly, I had learned. It was adorable and horrifying in equal measure. 14, she said finally. "No, wait. 16? Let me check." Khorvax said very quietly. "What is happening right now?" I said slowly, watching Rachel create another completely valid solution pathway that definitely had not existed in any of our documentation, that we are witnessing a species make a logic puzzle their personal playground. Rachel worked for another 20 minutes, her movements becoming more confident, more playful even. She would build a solution, examine it, nod approvingly, then tear it apart and build another one. The monitoring system had given up trying to categorize what it was seeing and had simply started numbering the solutions in ascending order. Solution pathway theta detected. Solution pathway iota detected. Solution pathway kappa detected. "Make it stop," Khorvax moaned. "I cannot make it stop. She has not violated any rules. She is violating the spirit of the rules." Rachel finally sat back, wiping her hands on her pants like she had just finished some physical labor instead of mentally deconstructing a puzzle that was supposed to be the pinnacle of galactic cognitive assessment. She looked up at the observation panel, directly at where Khorvax and I were standing, and waved. "I am done," she called out cheerfully. I activated the communication link with a trembling manipulator. "You have completed the assessment?" "Yep. Found 12 viable solutions. Well, 12 that I am confident about. There might be more, but I did not want to take up too much time. I figured you probably have other people waiting." She paused, then added with what looked like genuine concern, "I hope I did not miss any of the obvious ones. Sometimes I overthink these things and skip right past the simple answers." Silence filled the observation room. The kind of silence that occurred when the universe itself needed a moment to process what it had just heard. 12, Khorvax said faintly. She said 12, I confirmed. "The puzzle has one solution." I corrected. Had one solution. Rachel was still looking up at us, her expression shifting from confident to uncertain. Was I supposed to only find one? Oh no. Did I break something? I am really sorry if I broke something. My professor always said I had a problem with overcomplicating things. My translator collar sparked slightly, trying to parse the linguistic paradox of apologizing for being too competent. "You did not break anything," I managed to say. "You just redefined the parameters of galactic cognitive assessment." "Oh good." Rachel brightened immediately. "So when do I find out if I passed?" Khorvax made a sound like air escaping from a punctured habitat module. I understood completely, the human had not just passed. She had looked at the most difficult logic puzzle in known space, found 12 solutions where there was supposed to be one, and then apologized for possibly missing the obvious answers, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I realized with creeping dread that humanity had not even been invited to join the galactic community yet. This was just their preliminary assessment. We're in so much trouble. The emergency council meeting was called exactly 47 minutes after Rachel Kim left the testing facility, still cheerfully apologizing for maybe overthinking things. I sat in my designated pod in the grand assessment hall, watching the other evaluators file in with expressions ranging from confusion to outright panic. Khorvax had not stopped muttering about paradigm violations since we left the observation room. The hall itself was designed to be intimidating. Vaulted ceilings that stretched up into artificial darkness, holographic displays showing the cognitive assessment scores of 600 species, and at the center, the High Arbiter's platform. That platform was currently occupied by Threnix the Contemplative, a being so old that his species had evolved twice during his lifetime. "Explain," Threnix said, his voice resonating through every translator in the room simultaneously. He did not believe in pleasantries. I stood, my legs feeling less stable than I would have liked. The human subject, Rachel Kim, was administered the Khorvax Logic Puzzle as part of standard pre-contact cognitive evaluation. And? Threnix's sensory fronds twitched with impatience. And she solved it 12 times. The hall erupted. Not with applause or congratulations, but with the kind of noise that happened when several hundred beings from different species all tried to express disbelief in their native languages at once. It sounded like a shuttle crash mixed with a musical performance mixed with someone stepping on a Glorbian topod. "Order!" Threnix bellowed, which was impressive considering he did not technically have vocal cords. 12 solutions? The Khorvax puzzle has one solution. This is documented fact. The architect spent 4 centuries designing it specifically to have one solution. Yes, well, I said, pulling up the holographic recordings of Rachel's session. About that. The display showed Rachel's work in fast forward. Solution after solution materialized in the air above us, each one valid, each one completely different from the last. I watched the assembled evaluators lean forward, their various appendages and sensory organs fixated on the impossible configurations spinning before them. This is solution pathway gamma, I narrated, trying to keep my voice steady. She discovered it by inverting the quantum states. This is pathway epsilon, which she found by treating the 12-dimensional space as a folded manifold. This is pathway lambda, which apparently works if you just ignore conventional spatial geometry entirely and embrace what she called the vibes of the thing. The vibes? Threnix repeated slowly. Her translator may have malfunctioned on that particular phrase, I admitted. A Thessarian mathematician in the front row raised 3 of her 7 hands. May I examine the recordings more closely? Of course. She manipulated the hologram, rotating it, zooming in on specific node connections, running calculations on a personal computing device that hummed with processing power. After 5 minutes, she looked up at Threnix with an expression that her species used to convey existential horror. They are all correct, she said quietly. Every single solution is mathematically valid. More than that, they are elegant. The human did not brute force these answers. She understood the underlying structure and exploited symmetries we never knew existed. Impossible, someone shouted from the back. The architects would have known. The architects, the Thessarian said with a slight edge to her voice, were very intelligent. But perhaps they were not human levels of creatively stubborn. That got another round of noise, this time mixed with what sounded like nervous laughter. Threnix raised one crystalline appendage for silence. What else did the human do during her assessment? I swallowed hard, which was tricky with my physiology. She completed the spatial reasoning test in half the allotted time, the pattern recognition sequence in a quarter of the expected duration, and the ethical dilemma simulation in what? In negative time, apparently. She solved the dilemma before the simulation finished loading by identifying a logical flaw in the scenario parameters. Then she asked if we wanted her to fix the programming bug she had noticed. Someone in the middle rows fainted. I heard the distinct sound of a body hitting a pod cushion. Threnix was silent for a long moment, his ancient mind clearly working through the implications. What is your professional assessment, Evaluator Velric? Honestly, High Arbiter? I took a breath. I think we have been evaluating cognitive ability wrong for about 6,000 years. That was apparently not the answer anyone expected. The hall went so quiet that I could hear the environmental system cycling air through the ventilation shafts. Elaborate, Threnix commanded. I pulled up another display, this one showing cognitive assessment scores across all known species. We have always measured intelligence as a linear progression. Pattern recognition, logic processing, memory retention, spatial reasoning. We rank species based on how efficiently they solve problems using established methods. Yes? Threnix sounded wary now. Humans don't work that way. They don't just solve problems efficiently. They solve them weird. They find approaches that shouldn't work but do. They ignore rules that seem fundamental and succeed anyway. Rachel Kim looked at the Khorvax puzzle and didn't see a challenge to overcome. She saw a toy to play with. That is not proper scientific cognitive assessment procedure, a voice called out. No, I agreed. But it might be more effective than anything we have ever developed. Khorvax stood up beside me, his carapace still clicking with agitation. We need to discuss the security implications. If one human can do this, what happens when we make contact with their entire species? They have 8 billion of these problem-solving chaos agents on one planet. 8 billion, someone whispered. 8 billion, someone else shouted, the panic was spreading now. I could see evaluators checking their datapads, pulling up the preliminary reports on human civilization. Their faces, or face equivalents, went through various stages of concern as they read. They have been spacefaring for less than a century, a Brinthos analyst read aloud. Their computer technology is barely quantum capable. Their mathematics is still primarily symbolic rather than psionic. And yet Rachel Kim just rewrote our understanding of multidimensional logic. I finished. Threnix's fronds were moving in a pattern I had never seen before. It took me a moment to realize he was laughing. Actually laughing. A being who had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, who had evaluated hundreds of species for galactic membership, was laughing like someone had just told him the universe's funniest joke. What are we going to do? Khorvax demanded. Threnix's laughter subsided into something that looked like deep satisfaction. We are going to do what we always do when we encounter something unprecedented. We are going to learn from it. But the protocols. The protocols, Threnix said gently, were written by species who never encountered humans. I suspect we will need to revise quite a few things. He turned his attention back to me. Evaluator Velric, prepare a full report on the human assessment. Include all recordings, all solutions, and your recommendations for modified evaluation procedures. Modified procedures? I asked. Indeed. Because if humans are going to join the galactic community, and I suspect they inevitably will, we need to understand how they think. Or at least develop protocols for when they think in ways we cannot predict. A Mercalian delegate stood up, her shell gleaming under the hall lights. High Arbiter, with respect, are we certain we want to invite humans to join us? They seem unpredictable. Every species seemed unpredictable when we first encountered them, Threnix replied. The Thessarians solved problems through mathematical purity we found incomprehensible. The Brinthos achieved consensus through chaotic discussion that looked like arguing. The Glorbian hive minds made decisions through processes we still don't fully understand. He gestured at the hologram still showing Rachel's solutions. But none of them made us question our fundamental assessment tools. That alone makes humanity valuable. Or dangerous, someone muttered. Often the same thing, Threnix said cheerfully. Evaluator Velric, one more question. How did the human react when you explained the significance of what she had done? I thought back to Rachel's face when I had carefully, nervously told her that she had solved an impossible puzzle in impossible ways. She said, and I quote, "Oh cool, I love puzzles. Do you have any more?" Then she asked if we wanted help designing new assessment tools because she had some ideas about incorporating non-linear temporal logic that might be fun. Fun, Threnix repeated. She used that word specifically. Fun. The High Arbiter made a sound that every translator in the room struggled to process. Yes. I think humanity will fit in just fine. They will drive us all absolutely insane, but they will fit in fine. High Arbiter, I ventured. What do I tell Rachel? She is waiting for her assessment results. Threnix considered this. Tell her she passed. Tell her she passed so thoroughly that we need to redesign the test. And then. He paused, his ancient eyes twinkling with something that might have been mischief. Ask her if she would like a job. A job? Someone needs to help us prepare for the rest of her species. It might as well be someone who understands how humans think. I left the grand assessment hall with my head spinning and my datapad full of new assignments. Khorvax walked beside me, unusually quiet. Do you think we are making a mistake? He finally asked. Probably, I said honestly. But I think we are making an interesting mistake. And that seems very human somehow. When I returned to the testing facility, Rachel was sitting in the waiting area, reading something on her personal communication device. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. So, she asked. Did I pass? You passed, I said. You passed so completely that we are going to have to invent new passing categories. Her smile got wider. Really? That is amazing. When do I get to tell Earth about the whole aliens existing thing? Because people are going to freak out in the best way. Soon, I promised. Very soon. But first, I have a question. Would you be interested in helping us develop new cognitive assessment tools? We could use someone with your unique perspective. Rachel's eyes lit up with the kind of enthusiasm that I was beginning to recognize as characteristic of her species. Are you kidding? That sounds incredible. I have so many ideas about multidimensional logic puzzles. Oh, and what if we incorporated time loop paradoxes? Or quantum superposition challenges? Or, she kept talking, her words tumbling out faster than my translator could keep up. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I realized that the galactic community was about to get very, very interesting, had spent 6,000 years thinking we understood intelligence. Then humans showed up, solved the impossible, apologized for not finding more solutions, and asked if there were any more puzzles to play with. The universe was never going to be the same. And honestly? I could not wait to see what happened next.